Hello friends. Welcome to this video. In this video, we will explain negative risks, and these are also called as threats. In the realm of risk management, a threat refers to an event or condition that, if it occurs, has the potential to negatively impact one or more objectives or goals. These objectives can be anything from personal goals, business objectives, project outcomes, financial targets, and more. In other words, a threat is a potential occurrence that could lead to unfavorable consequences. So, a threat or negative risk is an event or condition that, if it occurs, has the potential to cause negative consequences for your objectives. By identifying, assessing, and managing these threats, individuals, organizations, and projects can better prepare for potential challenges and uncertainties. We will be creating more videos on PMP certification. Please like the video and subscribe to our channel to view upcoming videos. In addition, we have shared a few links in the description that will help you to access the exam study material. Avoid risk response. In risk management, the avoid risk response strategy involves taking proactive measures to eliminate a threat entirely or to protect the project from its potential negative impact. This strategy is chosen when the identified risk is deemed too significant or unacceptable, and the project team decides to change plans, processes, or activities to ensure that the risk is not realized. Examples of avoid risk response. Change in project location. Imagine a construction project planned in an area prone to frequent earthquakes. The project team identifies the risk of potential structural damage due to earthquakes and assesses that the impact could be catastrophic. To avoid this risk, the project team decides to change the project's location to an area with lower seismic activity. By doing so, they eliminate the threat of earthquakes and protect the project from their potential impact. Switching suppliers. In a manufacturing project, the team identifies a risk related to unreliable suppliers that could cause delays or disruptions in the supply chain. To avoid this risk, the project manager decides to switch to more reliable suppliers with a proven track record of timely deliveries. This proactive action eliminates the risk of supplier-related delays and ensures a smoother production process. Scope reduction. A project team working on a tight deadline and budget identifies a risk related to the potential for scope creep, which could lead to delays and budget overruns. To avoid this risk, the project manager proactively decides to reduce the project scope by focusing only on essential features and functionalities. This strategy eliminates the risk of scope creep and ensures that the project's objectives can be met within the defined constraints. Rework prevention. In a manufacturing project, the team identifies the risk of defects and rework due to poor quality control processes. To avoid this risk, the project manager implements rigorous quality control measures at each stage of production, including inspection and testing. This proactive approach eliminates the risk of defects and the need for time-consuming rework. In these examples, the avoid risk response strategy is used to eliminate or mitigate risks by changing plans, processes, or activities. By taking proactive actions to prevent the occurrence of the risk or to protect the project from its negative impact, the project team ensures a smoother and more successful project outcome. Mitigate risk response. In risk management, the mitigate risk response strategy involves taking proactive actions to reduce the likelihood of a threat occurring or to minimize the potential negative impact if the threat does materialize. This strategy is chosen when the identified risk poses a significant potential impact on the project's objectives, and it is deemed worthwhile to invest resources to reduce its likelihood or severity. Examples of mitigate risk response. Software development project. In a software development project, the team identifies the risk of potential delays due to insufficient testing. To mitigate this risk, the project manager decides to allocate more time and resources for comprehensive testing throughout the development process. This proactive approach aims to catch and rectify issues early, reducing the chances of critical defects emerging during the later stages of the project. Supplier reliability. A manufacturing project identifies the risk of unreliable suppliers causing delays in the supply chain. To mitigate this risk, the project manager implements a dual sourcing strategy, where critical components are sourced from two different suppliers. This approach helps reduce the dependency on a single supplier and minimizes the impact of potential disruptions from one supplier. Scope creep in project management. A project manager anticipates the risk of scope creep, unauthorized changes or additions to the project's scope. To mitigate this risk, the project manager establishes a robust change control process that requires any scope changes to be documented, reviewed, and approved by stakeholders. This helps prevent uncontrolled scope changes and ensures that changes are aligned with project objectives. In each of these examples, the mitigate risk response strategy is used to proactively address risks that could have negative impacts on the project's success. By taking early action to reduce the likelihood of threats occurring or to minimize their potential impact, the project team enhances the overall project's chances of meeting its objectives in a smoother and more controlled manner. Transfer risk response. In risk management, the transfer risk response strategy involves shifting the responsibility for managing a threat to a third party, along with the associated impact if the threat actually materializes. This strategy is chosen when another entity, such as an external vendor, partner, or insurance provider, is better equipped to handle the risk or can manage it more efficiently than the project team or organization. Examples of transfer risk response. Outsourcing IT security. In a software development project, the team identifies the risk of cybersecurity breaches that could compromise sensitive customer data. The project manager realizes that cybersecurity expertise is required to effectively manage and prevent such breaches. Instead of trying to handle this risk internally, the project manager decides to transfer the risk by outsourcing IT security to a specialized cybersecurity firm. This firm will be responsible for implementing robust security measures and managing the risk of data breaches. Supplier risk management. In a manufacturing project, the team identifies the risk of potential delays in the supply chain due to supplier-related issues. To mitigate this risk, the project manager decides to transfer the risk by signing contracts with suppliers that include penalties for delays. This way, the suppliers become responsible for managing their own risks and ensuring timely delivery of materials, as they would bear the financial consequences of any delays. In these examples, the transfer risk response strategy is used to delegate the responsibility of managing and mitigating risks to parties that are better equipped or have the expertise to handle them. By transferring the risk, the project team or organization reduces its exposure to potential negative impacts and ensures that the risks are managed effectively by entities that specialize in those areas. Escalate risk response. In risk management, the escalate risk response strategy involves raising a risk concern to a higher level of authority or management when the project team or project manager identifies a threat that is beyond their scope of control or decision-making authority. This strategy is used when the risk is of significant importance, has implications beyond the project's boundaries, or requires decisions and actions that are beyond the project manager's authority. Examples of escalate risk response. Regulatory compliance. Imagine a construction project that involves building a complex structure. The project team identifies a risk related to potential non-compliance with complex environmental regulations. The risk has implications not only for the project's schedule and budget but also for legal and environmental aspects. Recognizing that addressing this risk requires specialized legal expertise and interactions with regulatory authorities, the project manager decides to escalate this risk to higher management or legal experts within the organization. The decision to escalate is based on the need for a response that goes beyond the project manager's authority and expertise. National security concerns. In a software development project for a government agency, the project team identifies a risk related to potential cybersecurity vulnerabilities in the developed application. However, the nature of the vulnerabilities is such that they could have implications on national security. The project manager recognizes that handling such risks involves considerations beyond the project's scope and technical expertise. In this case, the project manager escalates the risk to higher levels of authority within the organization, including senior management, security experts, and possibly government agencies responsible for national security. In these examples, the escalate risk response strategy is used when the identified risks are beyond the project manager's authority, expertise, or scope of control. The risks have implications that extend beyond the project's boundaries and require decisions and actions at higher levels within the organization. By escalating these risks, the project manager ensures that the appropriate stakeholders with the necessary authority and expertise are involved in making informed decisions about how to address the risks effectively. In risk management, the accept risk response strategy involves acknowledging the existence of a risk and its potential impact on the project's objectives, but consciously deciding not to take any active measures to address or mitigate the risk. This strategy is chosen when the potential negative impact is deemed acceptable, the cost or effort required to mitigate the risk is disproportionate to the potential impact, or when the risk falls within the organization's risk tolerance threshold. Examples of accept risk response. Weather-dependent outdoor event. Imagine a project involving organizing an outdoor music festival. The project team identifies the risk of adverse weather conditions. While they recognize that bad weather could impact attendance and the overall success of the event, they decide to accept this risk. They might have considered the unpredictable nature of weather and the limitations of available resources to mitigate weather-related risks. In this case, the project team might have a contingency plan in place, such as providing rain covers for the stage and seating areas, but they don't invest significant resources in trying to change the weather. Minor IT system glitches. In a software development project, the team identifies the risk of minor glitches occurring in the system after deployment. The team assesses that these glitches would not significantly impact the end user's experience, and they might be addressed through updates or patches later on. Considering the limited impact on user satisfaction and the availability of easy fixes, the team decides to accept this risk rather than investing substantial resources in exhaustive testing and debugging before deployment. In each of these examples, the project team evaluates the potential risks and decides that the impact of the risks, or the cost and effort required to mitigate them, does not warrant active risk mitigation measures. Instead, they choose to monitor the situation and possibly have contingency plans in place to respond effectively if the risks do materialize. This demonstrates how the accept risk response strategy is used to make informed decisions about which risks are acceptable and can be managed without taking proactive measures. Thank you for watching the video. Stay tuned for our next video on another topic on PMP.